You know what's a truly prevalent problem we've been facing so far? It's the utter lack of counter space. Why don't we have counter space? Because it's like every day they bring out another bread maker or an ice cream maker. And of course, we have to have it. That's just not a question. But it got us thinking, where did all this even begin? So let's find out together. Let's go. First up, let's talk about the origin of bread. Around 10,000 BC is when the first signs of baking bread were discovered. The Egyptians discovered sourdough bread, our favorite kind, in approximately 6,000 BC. It appears that the discovery of using fermentation to make bread rise happened accidentally when some dough was left in the sun and rose. Since that time, bread has distinguished itself as a common dietary item throughout the globe. Greek royalty would dip it in wine and honey. In ancient Rome, bread had significant political significance. Caesar would distribute it to the populace to win their support. In the Czech Republic, bread had a special significance in the king's coronations and even valued higher than gold by some. If you ask us, we're a little confused. Did the Czech have their priorities messed up, or did they simply know best? Fun fact, the oldest bread oven in the Czech Republic, which dates back between 6,600 and 6,800 years, is located in Byliny. Coming up, how did it all evolve? In the beginning, the people in the Czech Republic baked bread at home until the Middle Ages. The art of baking developed somewhere in the Middle Times, and bakers gained a reputation as prominent individuals. There were stringent guidelines and laws about baking in the 18th century. A baker was fined if it was discovered that he had inflated the weights of his loaves. Not only were they fined, but they were severely punished by dunking in a well or lake. Yikes! But the 19th century witnessed a change in the status quo, and the early 20th century saw the introduction of large-scale, mass-produced baking in the cities. Small family bakeries were becoming less prevalent by the 1950s, with the exception of small towns and rural areas. In the 70 years since, we've witnessed an advent of modern baking, which roughly translates to the use of chemicals and preservatives in their process so that the end product lasts longer and is essentially cheaper. Now let's talk about the technology used in bakeries. The technology used in bakeries has progressed from very primitive to fully automated. Technology development has made it possible to produce bread more effectively. Commercial bread production grew following World War II to satisfy consumer demand. With the addition of mechanized dough development and intense mixing, fermentation and proof time lowered. The ideal dough may be made in 4 to 12 minutes, cutting the time it takes to make bread in half. The flavor development was hampered by the accelerated fermentation. Brew systems, sponges, and permitting longer fermentation durations are being introduced to the automated process of commercial bakeries in order to meet the demand for tastier bread that exists today. The demands of all this automation led to the implementation of intermediate proofing. So automation and proofing essentially go hand in hand. Next, how does intermediate proofing work? Bulk fermented dough loses gases and it's divided and rounded, which reduces its pliability and elasticity. During an intermediate proof, the dough passes through fermentation and the structural relaxing of gluten, preparing it for final shaping. Depending on the temperature and the sturdiness of the dough, the intermediate proofing period, which can be exploited to affect the final bread cell structure, can last up to 15 minutes. A longer intermediate proofing period is essential to produce a bread like French baguette that has an open cell structure because the intermediate proofing permits the yeast to produce carbon dioxide gases. In addition to time and temperature, additional elements like reducing agents or proteolytic enzymes that have been added to increase dough flexibility also have an impact on the changes in dough properties throughout this time. These chemicals are frequently used in plants to purposefully decrease the intermediate proofing period. The most useful intermediate proofing in commercial baking is the pocket-style proofer. The entire resting period, dough balls are put into pockets. The pockets are then secured in frames, which are then fastened between two chains that move the swings from the charging to the discharging stations around the proofing cabinet, a technique that makes the process easier. Fun! Also, we really didn't expect this to turn into Baking 101, but we're okay with that. Up next, what's the difference between the local bakeries and the automated baking factories? The first may bake between 100 and 1,000 pieces of bread per day, and the second may bake at least 1,000 pieces. The difference between the amount of loaves produced in a day is rather huge, but it's because most wholesalers prefer automated bread factories because they can deliver a range of sizes and qualities at constant prices. This makes it perfect for populous cities with lots of consumers. The daily supply of bread produced by the neighborhood bakeries, on the other hand, can cover the needs of a whole neighborhood, village, and street, but may not be sufficient to travel far to other places due to supply limitations. Due to the system of mass production adopted by the automated bakeries, their bread seems to sell relatively cheaper than those made in smaller setups. This practice has significantly lowered the price of bread on the whole, which which in turn exerts pressure on existing bakeries to reduce production costs and make creative use of the available raw materials. Automated bakeries' introduction of price competition has also benefited the economy. A new chain of business for distributors, who can be as many as feasible, has been introduced by the automated bakeries' huge volume of output and changing quantities. This suggests that a large number of investors may work as distributors for the bakery and earn a living selling the goods made at the facility. A possible future venture for you guys? Coming up, let's talk about the limitations of automated bakeries. An automated bakery is quite expensive to set up financially. Well, we know what a standard bread maker costs, so we can imagine how much that might add up to. Most nations only have a small number of automated bakeries, and those that do exist are only found in urban areas. This is because in order to create an automated environment, you require a reliable electricity supply and enough raw materials to keep the factory operating normally. It can occasionally be challenging to manufacture specialty breads tailored for specific events due to mass production. So you see, every step in the manufacturing of bread, from the preparation of the raw ingredients and the auxiliary materials to the shaping of the finished product, has an impact on its quality. Thus, it is crucial to select the right production equipment and machinery and control the production process well. Now let's talk about what kind of bread you can find at the supermarket. Modern supermarkets appear to offer a vast selection of bread items at first look. They are mostly just different versions of the same dish. Artificial colors, varied shapes, and the addition of little extras like seeds give them a distinctive appearance. True whole grain bread is hard to come by in the grocery. It doesn't constitute a loaf of bread, whole grain, just because it's dark. Next time you're buying bread, look for the label to see if it says true whole grain. You probably won't find whole grain bread here, except perhaps in a tiny family bakery. It is nearly impossible to acquire truly leavened bread prepared from sourdough starter. Did you realize that most store-bought bread contains recycled components from previous unsold loaves? Large bakeries that provide supermarkets with fresh bread frequently engage in this approach. These bakeries frequently produce significantly more loaves than are actually sold in order to have enough bread on the store shelves. Instead of being thrown away, the unsold loaves are brought back to the bakery and softened, crushed up, and mixed in with the fresh dough. The percentage of stale bread that may be mixed in with fresh dough are governed by law. However, this is not tightly regulated. The fresh loaf of bread you just purchased might actually be made up of half of a previous loaf that was recycled. Okay, we're a little disturbed now. Last but not least, what's healthy bread and how do we get that? Given all these details, baking your own bread is the only authentically healthy and delectable option. You may bake bread that is a true source of nutrition and flavor by using sourdough starter instead of commercial yeast and following a simple recipe of whole grain flour, water, salt, or cumin. You can be certain that you aren't putting carcinogens, additives, chemicals, or white wheat gluten into your body. It might be a little tough on your pocket, but can you really put a price tag on good, healthy bread? That's all for this video, folks. What do you think about the automated process of our bread? Do let us know in the comments below. Hit like and click the bell icon so you can keep up, and press that subscribe button. We'll be back soon with another video. Till then, goodbye.